But it does feel a little bit bizarre that today we're talking about this on the front page news about potentially destroying this orchard on Earth Day, a day when we're talking about the environment and how important that is. It just feels a little bit of a clash, and maybe should focus our minds in looking a bit harder and saying, is there an alternative we can do?
It's planet versus plastic, the theme, which I think was the first theme about 40 years ago when the Earth Day started, by the way. We'll talk to the CEO of a local company who are on the cutting edge of all of this a bit later on. But when you are involved in something like a bus travel and the Busway and so on, as you were for so many years, Andy, how can you mix business and the environment? Is it a difficult task?
It is a difficult task, and you've got to take other people's views into consideration when you're making these decisions. I think that there's a fundamental flaw in the proposed busway anyway. It's fine while you're on the busway section, but what happens when you get closer to the city centre? There isn't a convenient route that allows you to get into the city quickly. So they need to solve that problem, because there's no point building a busway and then just moving your congestion further into the city centre. And I think the other thing that they need to ensure is that there is a minimum level of service, because last week they cut the service from Trumpington to Addenbrooke's down to every 15 minutes, and they were leaving hundreds of people behind that couldn't get to work at the hospital, which is the most ludicrous thing you could imagine. I know it's not easy running a bus company, and sometimes you've got a service where not enough people travel to be able to cover the cost of the operation, but that certainly doesn't apply with that particular route.
We've talked to the people who run the buses on the show several times, haven't we, Matt? And one of the things they've said to us is it's all the roadworks and the delays that are causing them to abandon some of the services because they just can't run them on time.
Well, that doesn't apply to the busway, does it?
No, it doesn't. But
no, it can cause issues and problems, and then you do have some of the routes that are less used, which that have to be subsidised as well. Among these plans, there is a park and ride site being proposed as well for Coton as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Does anyone else get driven crazy by driving along and you go you come to one of those stop go things with lights and so on, and there's appears to be no work going on there. It doesn't seem necessary. There's nobody there whatsoever, and it's at a weekend and there's massive queues. Anyone else have that?
Ghost temporary traffic lights, I like to call them. Yeah.
I think if somebody came down from space, they'd think that we were populated by cones.
Take me to your leader. In this story, Chris, I think two things leap out at me. The quite genuine sensitivity about going through an old orchard, because we've lost our orchards in Cambridgeshire over the years, and we used to be famous for our orchards and the quality of fruit that we produced, and we've lost a lot of heritage varieties and a lot of that space in recent times. But also the bit of this story about how some people are supporting this because there is the potential maybe to build like a light transport network across what would be the busway between Cambourne and Cambridge. When I've been around at Radio Cambridgeshire, and you have as well, I think, Chris, long enough to remember back in the early days of the guided busway, one of the arguments is why can't we just put a train back on that line between St Ives and Cambridge? So we've come ever so slowly full circle back round to this, haven't we?
I'm sure Andy will know all of this, but there used to be trams in most of our major cities. My dad went to school on a tram in the 1940s, and they took them out in the 50s because electricity was a thing of the past, right?
Yeah, and now they're rebuilding them.
I mean, extraordinary, isn't it?
And we could always plant the orchard and trees in the potholes that we seem to be seeing, which are relatively deep enough at the minute. It seems to.
There's a new report out on potholes tomorrow, and I mean, they're just taking over the world, aren't they?